For months, Can Yaman's life in Italy has seemed like a story with a clear direction. New projects, public appearances, international attention, and an increasingly strong connection with the Italian entertainment world have all made one thing seem certain. Italy had become an important chapter in his career. But now, one simple idea has been enough to turn that certainty into a question. What if Istanbul is calling him back? The possibility of Can spending more time in Turkey might normally sound like an ordinary career decision. Istanbul is his home city. Turkish television played a major role in making him internationally recognizable, and returning there would hardly be unusual. Yet among fans, the conversation quickly becomes more emotional whenever another familiar name enters the picture: Demet Özdemir. Years have passed since Can and Demet appeared together in Turkish, but the chemistry that made their characters unforgettable still has an extraordinary hold on a section of their international fan base. For those viewers, even the smallest coincidence involving Istanbul, an old interview, a social media post, or a change in professional plans can revive memories of that era. That is exactly why speculation surrounding Can's possible return feels bigger than a simple travel story. However, there is an important distinction to make. There is no reason to automatically assume that every decision Can makes about Turkey is connected to Demet. A return to Istanbul could involve work, family, meetings, personal plans, or simply spending time in the city where his career began. Connecting that decision directly to Demet without confirmation would turn fan speculation into something it is not: established fact. And perhaps that uncertainty is what makes the story so fascinating. Because fans are not only asking, is Can returning to Istanbul? They are asking something much bigger. Could Turkey once again become the center of his professional life? Can's Italian chapter has introduced him to a different audience and helped expand his profile beyond the Turkish television industry. Leaving Italy completely would therefore be a major decision, and there is currently no need to assume that such a permanent move is happening. An actor can work between countries without choosing one forever. Still, Istanbul carries a different emotional meaning in the Can Yaman story. It represents the period when millions of viewers first discovered him. It represents the television projects that traveled far beyond Turkey. And inevitably, it represents Turkish and the partnership with Demet that continues to inspire edits, comments, discussions, and nostalgic fan theories years later. That nostalgia explains why the latest conversation has gained so much energy. For longtime followers, Can and Demet are no longer simply two actors who once shared a successful television series. Their collaboration became a cultural memory for the fandom. Some viewers still hope to see them together professionally again, not necessarily because something is happening privately, but because they remember what happened when the two performers appeared on screen together. And that raises the question, that could be far more realistic than the romantic theories circulating among fans. What if the real surprise isn't about Can and Demet's personal lives at all? What if the possibility that could truly shake the fandom is a future professional reunion? Because if Can Yaman really begins spending more time in Istanbul again, the entertainment industry will inevitably start asking who he could work with next. And sooner or later, one name will appear in that conversation: Demet Özdemir. The question is whether that name belongs only to the past, or whether there could still be another chapter waiting to be written. The interesting thing about this story is that Demet Özdemir does not need to do anything for her name to suddenly appear beside Can Yaman's again. That might sound strange, but it shows just how powerful the memory of Turkish remains. Whenever Can's career brings him closer to Turkey, a familiar pattern begins. Fans revisit old scenes, interviews resurface, social media fills with nostalgic edits, and people begin wondering whether two stars who once created such memorable chemistry could ever share the screen again. But nostalgia and reality are two very different things. Can and Demet have both built careers that moved far beyond the series that originally connected them in the public imagination. Demet continued developing her own projects and identity as an actress, while Can expanded his career internationally, particularly through his work and visibility in Italy. That means any potential reunion today would be completely different from what audiences saw years ago. They are different performers now. Their careers have evolved, Their audiences have expanded, and perhaps most importantly, expectations surrounding them would be enormous. Imagine, what would happen if a production company announced tomorrow that Can Yaman and Demet Özdemir were appearing in the same project again, the internet? Reaction would likely be immediate. Old Erkenci Kuş. Viewers would return. International fan pages would analyze every promotional photograph. Entertainment outlets would compare their new characters with Can and Sanem. Every interview would probably contain the same unavoidable question. What is it like working together again after all these years? That possibility alone explains why Istanbul becomes such an important detail in the fan conversation. If Can continues working primarily outside Turkey, a reunion can feel distant. But the moment people imagine him becoming professionally active in Istanbul again, that distance suddenly appears smaller, and that is where speculation begins to grow. Some fans naturally take things further, interpreting coincidences as signs of something personal, yet without direct confirmation, those theories remain exactly that. Theories. There is a much more interesting possibility that does not require inventing a secret romance or hidden meeting. Timing. Entertainment careers often move in cycles. Actors leave familiar markets, explore international opportunities, build new audiences, and sometimes return to earlier industries with completely different levels of experience. If Can were eventually to take on another major Turkish production, it would not necessarily mean his Italian career had ended. It could simply represent another stage of an increasingly international career. And if Demet happened to be attached to the right project, then producers would immediately understand the attention such a reunion could generate. But there would also be a risk. Erkenci Kuş created extremely high expectations. Trying to recreate exactly what worked before could easily disappoint audiences. A successful reunion would probably need to avoid becoming a copy of Can and Sanem's story. Different characters, a different atmosphere, a more mature storyline, perhaps even an entirely different genre that would allow viewers to experience the familiarity of seeing Can and Demet together without simply repeating the past. And this is where the current Istanbul discussion becomes much more interesting than the headline might initially suggest. Maybe the important question isn't whether Can is leaving Italy for Demet. That framing is dramatic, but it reduces two successful careers to a romantic rumor that has not been established. The bigger question is whether Can could be entering a period where Turkey becomes important to his professional plans again, and what possibilities that could create. Because if Istanbul really becomes a bigger part of his career, the list of potential collaborators will be discussed endlessly. And among all those names, Demet will almost certainly attract the most attention, not because fans know something is happening, but because millions of viewers remember what happened the last time these two actors shared a set. And if Can Yaman really does begin spending more time in Istanbul, the most important question may not be what he is leaving behind in Italy. It may be what he could be moving toward. For years, Can's career has increasingly carried an international identity. His popularity expanded far beyond Turkey, and Italy became one of the most visible stages of that journey. For many international viewers who discovered him later, seeing Can connected with Italian productions and events became completely normal. That is why even the possibility of a stronger return to Istanbul immediately feels significant. But a return does not necessarily mean an ending. Can could continue, maintaining professional connections in Italy while exploring opportunities in Turkey or elsewhere. Modern entertainment careers are increasingly international, and working in Istanbul again would not automatically erase everything he has built abroad. In fact, it could create an interesting new balance, and this is exactly where Demet Özdemir becomes impossible for longtime fans to ignore. Not because there is confirmed evidence that Can is making career decisions because of her. There isn't. Instead, Demet represents one of the biggest unanswered what-if questions surrounding Can's Turkish television history. What if they work together again? The idea becomes even more intriguing when you consider how different such a reunion would feel today. During Erkenci Kuş, audiences watched two rising stars create characters that became internationally recognizable. Today, both actors would return to such a partnership carrying years of additional experience and much larger individual fan bases. That changes everything. A reunion could no longer depend entirely on nostalgia. The project itself would have to justify bringing them together. Imagine, for example, a sophisticated drama rather than another traditional romantic comedy. Can could play a character completely removed from the energetic personality audiences remember from his earlier work, while Demet could take on an equally unexpected role. Perhaps they would begin as rivals. Perhaps they would play two people, reunited after years apart. Or perhaps producers would surprise everyone by creating a story where romance was not even the central element. Whatever the concept, the first teaser alone could become an event. Two silhouettes, Istanbul at night, a familiar voice, then Can appears. Seconds later, Demet enters the frame. No explanation would even be necessary. Fans would understand immediately. But until something like that is actually announced, it belongs firmly in the world of possibility rather than fact. That distinction matters, especially when social media can transform an innocent coincidence into a supposedly confirmed story within hours. Flight to Istanbul does not prove a secret meeting. Two celebrities being in the same city does not prove they are together. And Can considering work in Turkey would not prove that Demet influenced that decision. Yet none of those realities make the fan conversation less interesting. Quite the opposite. The uncertainty is what keeps people watching, because there is one element nobody can deny. Can Yaman and Demet Özdemir remain names capable of generating enormous attention when they appear in the same conversation. Years later, people still remember their scenes. They still share edits. They still debate whether another collaboration could ever happen. That kind of audience memory is rare, and producers understand the value of it. So perhaps the biggest story isn't a supposed secret reason behind Can returning to Istanbul. Perhaps it is the professional door that Istanbul could reopen, a door connecting his international career with the industry where millions first discovered him. And somewhere behind that door remains the possibility fans have refused to completely abandon. Can Yaman and Demet Özdemir sharing a screen again. But before anyone starts celebrating, there is one final question. Would returning to Istanbul actually mean Can is ready to leave his Italian chapter behind? Or could he be preparing for something much bigger, a career that moves freely between both worlds? That answer changes the entire story. So is Can Yaman really preparing to leave Italy? For now, that question does not have a confirmed, dramatic answer. And perhaps that is exactly why the conversation has become so intense. When a celebrity has built strong connections with more than one country, fans naturally search for meaning whenever their movements appear to change. Italy has become an important part of Can's international journey, while Istanbul remains connected to his roots, his earlier career, and some of the projects that first transformed him into a global name. Those two worlds do not necessarily have to compete. Can does not have to permanently choose Italy or Turkey. The most realistic future could actually involve both. An international production in one country, a television or streaming project in another, promotional appearances across Europe, and occasional returns to Istanbul could all coexist within the same career. But there is one reason the Istanbul possibility continues to create a different level of excitement. Demet Özdemir. For some fans, hearing Can Yaman and Istanbul in the same sentence immediately brings back memories of Erkanci Kush. And once those memories return, speculation about Demet is never far behind. Still, there is a line between hoping for something and claiming it has happened. There is no need to invent a secret meeting, an emotional reunion, or a private reason behind Can's possible movements. Without confirmation from the people involved or reliable reporting, those ideas should remain fan theories rather than facts. The genuine story is already interesting enough. Two actors who shared one of the most remembered partnerships of their careers went in different directions, developed independently, and built audiences far beyond the original series. Years later, viewers still want to see them together. That alone says something remarkable about the impact they created, and perhaps this is why a potential professional reunion would be far more powerful today than it would have been immediately. After Erkanci Kush, time has created distance. Distance has created nostalgia, and nostalgia has created anticipation. If Can and Demet were announced for another project tomorrow, Audiences would not simply be watching two actors reunite. They would be comparing two different eras of their careers, the young stars they remember, and the internationally recognized performers they have become. That contrast could make a reunion feel genuinely new rather than simply nostalgic. Of course, it might never happen. Can could continue focusing heavily on international productions. Demet could follow an entirely separate path. Their careers may never intersect professionally again. But until that possibility is definitively closed, fans will continue asking the question, and every connection to Istanbul will probably bring it back. Maybe Can's next chapter will remain centered in Italy. Maybe Turkey will become increasingly important. Again, maybe his future will be divided between several countries rather than belonging to only one. Whatever happens, one thing is clear: his journey has already moved beyond the boundaries of a single television market, and Demet has built her own journey as well. That is why the most interesting ending to this story isn't a dramatic claim that Can is abandoning Italy for Demet. It is something much simpler and potentially much bigger. Two careers that once crossed at exactly the right moment could someday cross again, whether that happens in Istanbul, somewhere else in Europe, or never at all remains unknown. But imagine the announcement: a new project, two names, Can Yaman. Demet Özdemir. After all these years, would audiences still be ready for them? Judging by how quickly their names can still ignite conversation, perhaps we already know the answer.